Well, the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the JavaScript structure here. So let's forget about the existing file. So I'm going to create a file called main.js. So this one will be the one to control all the rest of um, the modules, right? So in this one, it is like it should be in a sync function. So to run the function, the basic format is like this, right? So and inside we're going to say the sync function. Yeah. So basically that is the way to indicate that we want to run a function, and this function is in the sync function, right? So I'm just going to rewrite that again to format it in a better way. So it'll be like this, and then I can put those brackets together. So it will be like this. Okay, so inside, let's say that when we bring in this web page, the first thing we want to do is we want to run a function called the make element. So remember earlier we have created a lot of functions to load these contents. So we're gonna change that and put that into a function called a make element. Alright, so what are we gonna do? So the next is that when it is loaded, the other thing we want to do is to send a request to the backend to bring the existing themes and key words from the data that is here. No, sorry. So the themes and keywords from this JSON file. Okay. So this part is to send a request. So we're going to call that, for example, we're going to call that an event, right? And then we're going to run a function called await to send requests and get response according to this event. So okay, so that's basically what we want to do, right? So next, when it is loaded, we're going to do other requests. For example, by submitting this keyword, we want to bring back a sentence here, but that will be a different request. But the common function that we're going to use is this one called send request and get response. So in that function has been created, we just have to do a little bit modification according to that. But for now, let's go back to this make element, and let's try to find the things called the make element, which is in this make element.js file. So basically, these are the similar contents, but this time we're going to rearrange that, and we're going to put that into this tools folder, and we're going to create a new JavaScript file name called make elements.js. So this inside we're going to have all the functions or the steps you want to do for this make elements, and wrap that into a function called the make element. Right. So basically it would be the similar thing, but this time I'm gonna rearrange that and put that into a function called the make element, and that will be in this function. Okay. So and then the second is that I'm gonna change this. So instead of calling that tools, I'm gonna call that modules. Modules. Okay. So this just to have a standard name. So now it makes sense that I'm going to have a main outside. Then inside I'm going to have those modules, and one of these modules is to make elements. Then I can delete this make elements because the thing has been saved there. So in addition to this make elements, which is to bring back these things, I'm also going to create other JS script files. For example, I'm going to have this one called manage themes um, keywords.js. Okay, so in this modules, anything related to manage the themes and keywords, I'm gonna put it into this module, into this JS file. Right. So that would be the second. So then I'm gonna have the third one, which is called the view text. And remember, for this part, like input and bringing back this text and all highlighted stuff, all of these things, I'm gonna put that into a JavaScript called view text.js. Okay. So I'm gonna put all of the things there. Okay. And lastly, I'm gonna have a file called common. So this one is gonna take those modules or functions that does not belong to any of the kind. So I'm gonna have this called common. So in this common file, for example, we will have this function called send request and get response. That makes sense because both of this view text part and this themes and the keywords part will have to send a request to the backend and bring something back to the front end. So that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, so basically these are the changes that I made for this file. So now with all of this I can safely delete, because all of these functions, basically I just copy and move the functions from this the existing modules, so I don't have to have all of that. I just go back and bring all of these things. Yeah. Alright, so this is about a change I have for these modules. Right. The next is that I'm gonna, as I said earlier, that the request, for this request, I have to think about a different way, which is to identify the type of request, right? So my idea is that for this function send request and get response, I'm going to redefine this event. So if, like in the original case, if a button is clicked, then this event is going to have a target property, right? So if that is true, then it is from a certain element, right? And then I'm going to get the ID of this element, and if that element is like to get the text, from the backend, then I'm going to run a function called the get text, and this get text is in this view text. So if you scroll down, you will find it, which is the get text. Okay. So alternatively, if there is no target, like when I load this page for the first time, I don't have to click any button, but I want to run this function to bring back the themes and the keywords. So in that case, I'm going to specify that I want to run this function by an event called load themes and keywords, which is a string. So the different thing is that this time the event is a string. It is not an object. It does not have the target property. All right. So if this event is load themes and keywords, then it's going to run this function called a load themes and keywords in this JavaScript function called manage themes and keywords. Okay, so if you so it will be here, right? It will be here. So this is the first thing I'm gonna do, is that by redefining the send request and get response, then I have discriminate the different tasks and run the corresponding functions. So the next is that let's just go to this get text, for example. In this get text, then I'm gonna set a request cat, or later I'm gonna change that to request task. I think that makes more that is making more sense. So I've also I like for this get text, which is in this module called view text, right? So get text, I'm gonna send a request, and this time I'm gonna define the task as get text, right? And when it is back, I have an Ajax. If it is successful, then I'm going to bring this sentence into the message box, right? Um, if it is for bringing the themes and keywords, I'm going to have a different function which is called load themes and keywords. And for this one, so I'm going to send a request, but this time the request task is called a load themes and the words. And it's going to, when it is successful, it's going to do a different task, which is to render the data into the table, into the themes and the keywords table. So they're going to do different stuff. And you can see that I simplified that by simply, when I have this keywords array, I'm going to do it in using a function, and the function is listed separately. Right, so this is at the front end. I think everything is set. The only thing I need to change is here in this index HTML template. So now instead of loading these sorts of JavaScript files, I'm gonna change that to load these files. So I'm not sure that the order matters, but it seems like the orders does not matter much. Yeah, so basically it says that I need to load anything from this modules, this JS modules. Right, so and then after that I'm gonna go back and so I'm gonna go back and run the main function, and the main function is gonna control for everything. All right, so with all of that, and it should work as long as the backend has been changed accordingly. But now, just for fun, let's just run it and see what it is like. We know, bear in mind that the backend has not been down, but at least so these contents are the same. So now we have the input text, we have this boxes. So all of the things looks like the similar, but actually, so the way that is gonna send a request has been changed. But of course, because the backend has not been defined, so it's not going to be successful. So if I hit this submit button, hey, it is successful. So I guess it is because the JavaScript script file is not updated. But anyway, it sounds like it is successful. Interesting. Well, anyway, we'll see. But at least for this theme and keywords, we didn't bring in back anything. So this is interesting that actually I didn't change. Sounds like I didn't change anything. Like this backend works just like perfect. But anyway, all right. So let's stop it and close this thing. Now we're gonna go back and work on the backend, right? So the backend initially it is like this. It's gonna load. So we just go through these functions. All right. So the first part is to import the request for this backend. Oh, sorry. Let's just go back to the init file first. So for this init file, we're gonna import a Flask. This does not change. All right. So the next is that it's going to have this flags and define and decorate this flags. That's not changed as well. And then we're going to load the path and determine the current project name. In this case, it should be example 11. Okay. And then we're going to load all the modules from this backend. Sounds like it is the same for this. Okay, so then so we're gonna define for this. Where are we? Sorry, I have to close all of those JS files. It's a lot. Prepare data? No. Backend? No. Domain? No. Okay, so we're gonna go to this initial thing. Yeah. So for this one, it seems that we don't have to change anything. So it just stays the same because it is gonna bring back the stuff here. So the next is that we're gonna see what we should change in this backend file. So in this backend file, the first is that we're gonna from Flask we're gonna import a request. That one does not change. The second is to define the current project name so that we can import Flask, you know, from this project. So that one also does not change. So remember that earlier we have this, and we're gonna load the sentences from the first is that we're gonna load all the modules from this prepare data, right? So we're gonna change the order of these lines just to make to change it so that it makes more sense, because we say that the first part is for importing the module, so we're gonna put it here. So now basically it is like from the current project, whatever the name it is. Now it should be example 11 in this case, and then we're gonna find this py called prepare data, and then we're gonna import the functions there. This time, because there are gonna be more functions there, we're gonna just import all modules. Okay, so the syntax is like just import everything, which is a star. Yeah, so that is the way to import all the things from this py. We just change the order to make it make more sense. Yeah. All right, so that part is the same. The next is that we're gonna go down and we decorate that by pointing it to this backend folder, and we're gonna do something here. And now so what we have here is, so this is the part that I'm going to change. So previously I only have one task here, which is to bring back the text or the sentences. But now I have two different functions, so I'm going to change that. The first line stays the same. I'm going to use the request to get the JSON from the front end, right? And then, so the next is that I'm going to check the task. Remember I said that I'm going to have from the data sent from the front end, we have a field called request task. I'm going to use that to discriminate the things that I want to do. Right. So the next is that I'm going to say, okay, so if this request task is to get text, then I'm going to run a function. Note that this is a Python function called get text. All right. So the only parameter I would need is this JSON. So I'm going to send the JSON to this function, and basically this one is to bring the sentence and send it back, right? So otherwise, if the request test is to load this theme in words, and then I'm going to run a function called load themes and keywords. Again, I'm going to take that JSON, the request data from frontend to that function. So sometimes that if the task cannot be recognized, then I'm going to say that the requested task is something that I don't understand. So I don't know what it is, and then it's just sent back that message. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna suppose that that is gonna work, so I don't need the rest of the things, because I'm gonna put that into uh, the functions respectively. So I'm just gonna imagine that this is gonna be successful, so I will have this response, this prepared response data JSON by these functions. So the next thing I'm going to do is the same as I stringify that into a string and send it back. Okay, so that is going to be the connection, and this get sentence is actually going to go into one of the function, which is these get text, so I don't have to state it here. All right, so this is for the backend. I'm going to change it like this. And now, because I'm going to have this new get text and to load themes and keywords functions, so I'll need to add these functions into this prepare data. All right, so let's go to this prepare data. The first is that I'm going to redefine this get sentences. So now I'm not going to make it according to this hard coding, but instead I'm gonna read from the path, which is here. Right, so I'm gonna have the current working file, which is the folder of this Python, and then I'm gonna adding those subfolders, like from this Py flash app, then data, then input, then the sample sentences. I'm gonna read the file from there. All right, and then I'm going to run a function called the read JSON, and this one is going to read the file location of this and get a sentence dictionary and return that sentence dictionary. Okay, so for that reason, now I need a function called the read JSON, which is defined like this. Okay, so if you have a JSON file and you specify the location of it, it's gonna import the JSON. First, it has to open this file and then use the JSON load method to load this open file and return it. So this is the way to read the JSON file. Okay, so now I have the sentences, right? So the next is that with the sentences, then I can define this get text, which is like this. So basically it is similar to what we have done before, but this time it's just going to put into this get text. So remember that earlier I said that so if the request is get text, then you run this get text with the argument of this JSON, which is the data request data from the front. So here I'm going to have this JSON file, and this JSON file is like the request task is get text, and then the request data from the front is like so a key of that, which is like A or B or C, right? So then I'm gonna get the requested data from front of the string, which is in that JSON file. I'm gonna get this string, which is the A part, right? Okay. So once I have that, then I'm gonna run this called the sentence get sentences. Remember, get sentences is this file, and this one is gonna go to the sample file in this path, and it's gonna load that as a JSON and send it back. Okay. All right. So now what I have is this sentence. So I'm gonna make it more specific, and actually it is a sentence. I can call that a JSON, or in this case it's actually like a dictionary, right? So I'm gonna have this sentence dictionary, and then I know that from the front, so I have specified that I want to have the sentence with the key of A. So let's just go back to this file, and it says the key of A refers to this sentence. All right. So if the if the key is A, yeah, if the key is A, then from this dictionary, I'm gonna get the sentence with the key of A. So this text is like the A, whatever, right? So otherwise, if the key, so like if you input a key of D, which does not refer to any sentence here, then it's gonna say the requested sentence cannot be found. This is similar as we have done before. So this part is basically to get the sentence or the text according to the key. So once it is done, then it's gonna prepare the JSON to send back. It says the JSON data to send from backend is the text is this thing, and then it's gonna return this JSON. Right, that's how it is gonna work here. Alright, so this one is for get sentence, and now it is complete. So if I have the thing that I want to bring it back and get the sentence, it should work like this. Okay, so let's just go back and test this and see if it works. So I'm gonna go back and run this function again. And this part has not been done, so there is nothing to bring back for the themes and keywords. But for this input text, so let's just update the JavaScript, and I'm gonna add this and you see that it works. So it works, okay. And in the backend it says that you didn't define this load themes yet, so it's gonna have an error, but for the part to bring back a text, it works. Okay, so now let's go ahead and define that the load themes and keywords part. Okay, so again, this is like in this file. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna define a module or a function called load themes and keywords. And again, just like what I did for this get text, I'm gonna have the request data as in from the frontend JSON as the input, right? So this one is like the request task is to request. So this request task is like to load the themes and keywords, right? So let's just make it explicit. So this one is like yeah. So the request data from the front is actually a data file location. So that was specified in at the front end. If you go back to this manage and themes, if you scroll up to this Ajax request, this is for loading the themes and keywords, right? So so it says that for this request, the task is load the themes and keywords. The request up front is the path, so I have put the path here. The relative path since the project the current working folder, working directory, which is the Python. This is the Python here. So anyway, so let's go back to this prepare. So I'm gonna close this JavaScript file. So this prepare data. Now, so we have the JSON from the front end. It's like this, the file location, right? So the file location is like this. So then we're gonna do the same trick as we did for the get sentence. That we're gonna know the current working directory, which is that Python, the location of that Python folder, and then we're gonna add the rest of the path, which is this part. So this is gonna refer to this file. Okay, so we're gonna read this file, and the same trick is that we're gonna we're gonna use the function to read JSON to read this file into a JSON. This time, as I said earlier, that this is a list. right, in which each element of the list is a dictionary. Okay, so then I have this and then I'm gonna prepare a JSON, and this time the JSON is the themes and keywords list. I'm gonna send it back as a JSON. Okay, so now let's go back to this back end. Now it is complete. So if the request is get text, you're gonna run this function called get text. If it is load themes and keywords, you're gonna run a function called load themes and keywords. Alright, so once it is done, then it's gonna go back and prepare the data string to send to the front end. That's it. Alright, so with all of these changes, let's see if it is gonna work. So I'm gonna rerun this again, and you see that this time it works. So the first is that when the page is loaded, it's gonna go to the back end and send a request to load the themes and keywords. So the existing themes and keywords is stored here. So it has two themes, adherence and cost effectiveness, in which each one is going to have its own keywords, and it has been brought back into the table. Right. So this is one type of request. Right. The other is that if I putting a text index, and I'm going to call it for example, a B, and submit it, and it's going to bring back the sentence. So these two different requests are going to be performed separately. So each time, so both the front end and back end nodes to identify a different task and perform different functions respectively. So this is very important that later we can add more requests from the front end. For example, so once we change these keywords or the themes, and we can send a request which is called update the JSON file, the themes and the keywords JSON file, and it's going to go back and overwrite the existing themes and keywords file. Right. So finally, let's just go back to this this backend file. So we have said that in the loading part, that in this file. Yeah, so in this loading part, we have loaded not only the app flask, we also loaded the modules from this prepare data. So as we have seen in the front end, we have now put the different JavaScript functions into different modules, and we have that classified into according to the category of the task. So we're going to imagine that in the future we will do this as well for those Python functions at the back end. All right. So it is for that reason we can imagine that later we might have to have a folder here so that we're going to put the modules inside. So let's going to call that, for example, for this one. So let's call that Python modules. Okay, so that is the folder, and in which we're going to have the script, the Python modules put in separate files. Let's say that there is a file, and this time is called Python modules. Because I don't know how to classify these modules yet, I'm just going to call that Python file modules1.py. Okay, so then inside, let's just make a test here to say that, okay, so I'm going to define a function called test1. So this one is actually for a test, and it is in this Python module1.py, and it is under this this folder, this module. And the thing is that we need to figure out how to load the modules from this file, okay? So the way to load it is, let's just go to this backend. So not only that we can load that from this prepare data, we can also load that from the Python file within this folder. And the principle is exactly the same. We just have to say that we are gonna load all the modules from this current project and in this folder. So we just have a dot to indicate this is a folder in which there is a file called py module 1, right? .py. So we don't have to put the py here. So that way, so we will load all the modules within this subfolder within this py file. Okay, so we're gonna load everything from that file. Okay, so now because it has been loaded, then we can run this test1. Remember that in this file we have this test1, and we can run it to indicate whether this function is working. Okay, so now let's just bring it back. And you will see that when it is running, it runs this test1. It says this is the test from test1 in this and this. So it indicates that it works. That later we can be more flexible. We can break down the modules and put that into separate Python files and save it in different places. Okay. All right. So basically, that is what we have done so far. Now we have two parts. This part is to view the text. This part is to classify the themes and the keywords. We can load it, and later we can in the following examples we're gonna modify these themes and keywords, and then we're gonna send it back to the backend to save it and update all of these things.